On this episode of the program, we have Evan Scrimshaw to go through everything we learned from the election results. It's a great chat. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for Friday, November 8th, 2024. Still digging through the wreckage of this election, and we're going to bring on Evan Scrimshaw in a second to talk through it. One real quick note, we are no longer in the transition period for our bonus content between Patreon and Substack. The Patreon era is done. It is gone. Substack was really nice to give everybody a month to transition between the two so you can move your money over from Patreon to Substack. We are no longer going to be posting anything on our Patreon account. So everybody should be getting the last charge on Patreon over, you probably already got it, over the last few days. It was for the 1 week that we did in November. Or in October, rather. Was it October? Yes, in October for the podcast when we were still over there, and now we are over on Substack. Let me tell you guys about a little something about me. My favorite fast food meal is at Wendy's, the spicy chicken sandwich. And I fell in love with the spicy chicken sandwich because it was a special that Wendy's had. And I found out, I went over there one time, I was in high school. I remember exactly which Wendy's it was on University Drive in Davie. And I got a spicy chicken sandwich, and I loved it. It was amazing. I just knew that I was always going to eat spicy chicken sandwiches from then on out. But it was a special deal, so you didn't have it all the time. And then one year, Wendy's made an announcement. The spicy chicken sandwich was permanent. It was always going to be there for me. And it is with that that I make our own announcement here on Politics. The most popular way that people have interacted with this show for bonus content over the last month has been our $99 yearly deal. 150 episodes of the show for less than $100. Now, this replaces what we used to do on Patreon with our $3 tier. $3 per week over 52 weeks is $156. After you cut out what Patreon took, it was like $140. With this deal, after Substack takes their cut, it is $90 to me. So I'm like taking about a $50 haircut per person. But at the same time, I am always a man of the people. People have loved that $99 deal. And when we look now at the next 4-year cycle that we are on the road to, when we look at the Democratic Civil War that is about to happen, when we look on the Republican side, and we haven't even talked about this, on the Republican side, how do the Republicans now survive without Trump? 12 years of talking about, how do we get Trump out of here? Now the conversation is, wait, hold on. How do we live without this guy electorally? I want as many people in this tent as possible. So, in the same way that the Republicans are going to make the Trump tax cuts permanent, I am making the Substack annual discount permanent. $99 is how much it's going to cost you for 1 year of PX3 content. Spread the word to your friends and family. It is now the way that you can do it. So if you took advantage of that deal, now you can encourage other people to do it. But head on over there right now, politics.com. Find a subscribe button anywhere on that page. Hit it, and you know that you will get 1 year, 150 episodes of PX3 for under $100. That's less than 60 cents an episode. It's a good deal. It's a good deal. And I'm happy to pass the savings on to you. With that being said, lot to tear through in this refractory period after the election. Here is Evan Scrimshaw. You know, there's a lot of big political media that's taken time off. I've read it at least 3 or 4 times on Substacks and in podcasts. Hey guys, we're taking a little vacation. Don't worry, we'll be back soon. But we don't take time off. We don't take time off on PX3. No. We hash through the wreckage of this election. As the phoenix has extinguished and we lie amongst the ash, we determine what it means with Evan Scrimshaw of the Lions. How you doing, Scrim?
I'm good. Not at the Lions anymore though.
Oh, you're not?
No, got let go on Wednesday. So that was a fun 1-2 punch to
really?
my last. Yeah, some corporate changes going on. So
well then now you are Evan Scrimshaw of your independent media career, which is going to be even bigger and better than any work that you have done at the Lions. So boo to the Lions, hooray to Evan Scrimshaw. And this is going to be a reason why you're going to support him even more because of the takes that we have on this show. Before we get started, we would be remiss if we did not go over our narrative draft that we did a few weeks ago. The 2 that I remember having were the Josh Shapiro, should have picked Shapiro, which I feel like is, I'm going to give myself 50% on that. I've seen it a lot, but the soundness of the defeat, I think, has muted any kind of outright anger from Democrats that Shapiro should have been the pick. What do you say?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely still out there because a lot of people just put their takes in the oven, 10 days ago, and a lot of people don't update their priors. I mean, like 80% of the takes we're seeing are just people being like, the thing I believed before the election, I now believe after the election. But like I'm sorry. Shapiro, like, Pennsylvania was her worst of the 3 Rust Belt states, but like, that's not, like, he might have said Bob Casey. Yeah. Maybe that's the argument for why you should have picked Shapiro, is to say Bob Casey, but like, no.
Yeah. Well, Amy Klobuchar certainly didn't need any help defeating Royce White. We know that in Minnesota.
Hey, maybe media market coattails is why Tammy Baldwin's in the Senate. Have you considered that?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that was a close one. All right. So we're going to get to some of the Senate stuff, I'm sure, in the second part of this. The other draft, the thing that I had was that we could be facing Kamala Harris ran the worst campaign of all time. And I think that was more of an outsider shot for me when I said it. I think that's kind of overperformed, where I thought Shapiro was a strong one, and that's underperformed in takes that I've seen. Harris ran a terrible campaign, has kind of overperformed. If anything, it might be the kind of dominant hipster take on this election, where especially a lot of leftists have jumped on that kind of argument. But it just kind of, in general, seems the consensus take is bewilderment and bafflement from Democratic establishment and voters saying like, oh, we just totally guessed wrong on this election. And so the tactics didn't matter. The strategy was just rotten.
So I'm actually so I agree that is one of the predominant takes. I'm going to completely push back at the idea it's a logical take in the slightest.
Okay.
The swing in the core 7 swing states as of yesterday morning, so there's been a bit of ballot counting, but I think it's mostly evened out at this point, was 3% against Harris. In the other 43 states and D.C., that swing is 6.7%.
Yeah.
To the extent that Kamala Harris's campaign, the places she went, the speeches she gave, the ads she ran, made a difference. She cut the deficit. She cut the swing by more than half. And that's actually even smaller if you just take the 3 Rust Belt states, North Carolina and Georgia, and you exclude the 2 Hispanic heavy states. I think it's pretty clear that Kamala ran a good campaign. She just was in a much bigger hole than any of us realized.
I think, and there's going to be a lot of conversation about the polling, but the like George W. Bush after 9/11 hockey stick surge, not only in Democratic polling for Harris, but also her approval rating, I think there was a lot of perfume, a lot of adrenaline to mask the fact that there was, this was still Joe Biden's America. And, that's just going to be what it is.
Sorry, you cut out there for me, and I think the recording.
Yeah, no, so did you. You cut out too, but now your audio is amazing. Yeah. All right, so here, let's just start from here. It was me just saying that the gigantic spike after Biden dropped out might have been a lot of perfume and distracted Democrats from realizing, oh no, that is still where they're starting from. They're starting from
I think that was I think it was a sugar high for sure, and I think that was always the risk, right? Was that things were really bad. But I actually think what we learned is that Biden was not in a competitive race before the debate, right? There's no universe in which pre-debate Biden was actually in like a tied national environment. If Trump is going to win the national popular vote against Harris by 2, there's just no universe where if Biden puts up like a mediocre and not truly disastrous debate performance, there's just no way that was right. And I think actually the big sugar hype moment was probably the State of the Union, and looking back, I kind of can't believe we all convinced ourselves, oh no, everything's fine. He didn't, throw up on stage.
All right. You maybe you and other liberal commentators had a mouse in their pocket. I was never of the belief that was anything other than Joe Biden can read off a teleprompter, and he lives in the Senate. He lives in Congress, right? Like him delivering the State of the Union is like his happy place. It is like if you brought Grandpa to the place where he played baseball in high school, he's going to be a little bit more active than he would be someplace where he's scared. Like that was Joe Biden in the optimal position, and even then he was screamy, yelly. It was exciting to see that he was alive. He didn't fall asleep, but I didn't think it was a great
but it didn't change my
priors on Joe Biden after that. Well, but then again, it's like, okay, but what? I guess we can get into polling in a second. Okay, I want to play a game. Unless there's anything that you want to apologize for in your takes, like
Georgia trended. Georgia, relative to national partisanship, Georgia went from being significantly redder than Michigan and Pennsylvania to actually moving left by essentially the most of any swing state. In a neutral or in a neutral environment, she would have won it, which is absolutely absurd. It's just she's going to lose the popular vote by 2. And so she's going to lose it by 2. But unless you really thought a Trump 2-point popular vote win, like I have takes that I think are that, I probably should apologize for and will in various places in time from this election. I really blew Georgia. Honestly, not the one I'm apologizing for.
Which one are you? Which is the stinker? That's you don't have to give them all. But what's the big stinker?
Goddamn confident that she was going to win Michigan. Like I just did not see the Michigan thing happening. I was like, she could lose Pennsylvania, maybe she could definitely lose Wisconsin. Like that didn't seem impossible at all. I just was like, Michigan is the easiest of the 7 swing states to give away. She's gonna win it. Don't understand why everyone's being so. Like I didn't see it happening in the slightest.
You didn't see Dearborn being a split ticket?
No, I did see that. I just expected the suburbs to continue doing what the suburbs had been doing, and they were just like, actually, no, we're going to stall out.
Yeah. All right. let's play a game. It's called Go Back in Time. You have one opportunity to go back in time with the Democratic campaign, and the goal is to just have a material overperformance of the Democratic ticket. All right? Where do you go back in time to, and what are you screaming?
The day that we got the day that Split Ticket released their assessment of what the House popular vote in 2022 adjusted for uncontested races was, and sit Joe Biden down and explain that just because a bunch of good Democrats won Senate seats, this was not a good election for you. This was not a good election for your politics. This was not a ringing endorsement of the party by any means. And just because Republicans run incredibly bad candidates does not mean that you are somehow popular, and sit him down and basically berate him into not running and saying, you made it clear that you are a transitional figure. Transitional figures don't run for 2 terms like every other president. It's on you. Let's have the primary. Because frankly, that was the moment when we should have known what was coming. And, Sean Trendy has done an analysis of this. Nate Cohn has said the same thing. But, like, this election, 2022 has been tricked a lot of people into thinking the Democrats were in stronger shape than they were. And I think looking back now, the fact that the midterm was better than expected tricked a lot of people into thinking that the fundamental problem of Biden having a 39 approval or whatever would just either go away or wouldn't matter. And I blame him for why Democrats lost. So yeah, that's the moment.
If Democrats want to have a moment like Matthew McConaughey at the end of Interstellar, where he's like screaming from the closet as he's looking at the events of the past, then go read the final 2 chapters of Franklin Foer's book, The Last Politician, about Joe Biden's first term. Or it ends essentially in triumph as Joe Biden is taking full credit for the midterms. That, everybody wrote him out, but he knew that Roe was going to be a winner. He knew that Ukraine was going to be a winner, and they stemmed the tide. The red wave never happened. There's still some life in old Joe yet. That's one that now that you look in hindsight and you see the horror that happened over those last 2 years, regardless of how you thought about it at the time, in the cold light of day, you are correct. The question is whether or not he would have been a lame duck or whether or not he would have resigned. But I think the problem that he always had was that he left wiggle room on the transition thing. He wanted to sell the idea of a transition candidacy, but he never pledged to only run for 1 term. It was always soft words. It was wiggle words. And then by the time that he's getting pushed off the stage, he's actively saying, yeah, no, I was going to be a transition candidate. And then I just saw how much work there was still to do. And it's like, no, you can either say, look, I never said I was going to be a transitional candidate. I just know that our future's bright. I just know that I'm the present. Or you can say I was a transitional candidate, take the win. Because that's the other thing. I don't think, Scrim, that you can go and tell Joe Biden to drop out. I do think that you can say, hey, look, I'm from the future. If you say that you are not running right now, you can run whatever you're going to do from now until the end of the election, and I'm just going to tell you, here's the primetime special that you're going to get, lauding you as the man who saved the Senate, the man who defeated Trump. You are going to be the honor, the guest of honor, who gives an hour-long speech on the 3rd night of the Democratic National Convention, probably over the vice president or something. You probably get day 2. Anyway, the Obama slot. You get the Obama slot. Obama doesn't get the Obama slot. You get the Obama slot. If you don't do it, I've brought some headlines about not only before, during, and after your campaign. Guess what, dog? It doesn't look great. It looks really
and I
bad.
think the thing about Biden is that he he is incredibly motivated by essentially two things, which is one, an ego. He has always thought that he deserved, the presidency. There have always been claims that that he has always been somewhat resentful of Obama, both for the fact that, he thought he should have been president in 2008. He ran for president in 2008. And then deeply resentful of Obama for...
But mostly
and
it's
then,
16.
Of course, the
mostly
2016 and the backing Hillary and everything that happened there. And that resentment is a big thing. But he is, he is endlessly concerned with his image and his legacy. And I think, I think he genuinely got it in his head that he was the only savior in the Democratic Party. And somebody needed to be able to sit him down long before July and say, dude, this is not going to be what is good for you. Because now Joe Biden's legacy is done. It's dead. Oh, you got a climate bill passed, half of which might be gutted by the Senate, by Trump, right? Oh, you passed a recovery bill that doesn't really have any legacy accomplishments whatsoever, and you pass the manufacturing stuff that made...
CHIPS Act might be something, Infrastructure Act might be something that, who knows if he'll be alive to see it.
But he ran on saving the country from Trump. Trump is replacing him. He failed.
Yeah. With the popular vote. I think the other thing that you do if you go into that Oval Office meeting screaming like, Doc Brown coming out of the DeLorean is, hey, let's be clear-eyed about your record right now. It sucks. You overperformed in the Senate midterms by way of things that you couldn't control. The stuff you could control ain't going great. It's going bad. And you've mismanaged inflation. You don't really get a... Here's the thing. Joe Biden's approval rating was terrible. And I think it probably could have been worse if you talk about, things like more people died of COVID under his watch than like Trump's watch, despite the fact that they had the vaccine. They didn't seem to have any kind of messaging control on inflation at all. In fact, they did the opposite. They lied to the American public, and the American public punished them for it. And then they seemed to take endless credit for predicting and saying that Putin would invade Ukraine, when that's cool in the initial offing, but when everything is a slog and a meat grinder past that, you don't really, that just kind of fades. It's like, great, awesome, that's it. And I think, before that was even before October 7th. You could say, oh, by the way, there's going to be bloodshed in the Middle East, the likes of which we haven't seen in a generation.
And of course, Biden, whose whole thing is that I have better relationships with, most of these world leaders than anybody, has been.
I'm the foreign relations guy.
Netanyahu
I'm the international.
Has played him like a fiddle. Like.
Well, and the problem is that we don't know exactly how much he's there. And that's when the books are written about the Biden administration, I'm going to be glad that they're at least going to be written with a really, really, really harsh light on it, because I do think that there's stuff here that we really need to take another look at. And probably the biggest thing is that, when he was fading, it came out that he hadn't had a joint chief of staff meeting in 4 months. He doesn't meet with everybody. Which to me, it's like when you look at what's happening in the Middle East, if you want real comprehensive solutions to stuff like that, then you need to have a strong executive who is giving orders to the State Department and the Defense Department specifically, that they are working in concert. And if there's one thing that we have seen in the Biden administration, is that they're not. The State Department and the Defense Department don't work in concert. You saw it in Afghanistan, you've seen it in Ukraine, and you've seen it in, more specifically, in the Middle East. The Biden administration is like 7 different fiefdoms, all of which have equal power, and Joe Biden is just
these
kind of
fiefdoms
there.
that do not respect Joe Biden because I would like to point out that we didn't have a defense secretary for like 3 days and nobody knew about it. And then didn't get fired.
Nobody told him.
Like, that story is insane to me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'd even forgotten about it. Yeah. That is the no firing policy of the Biden administration is baffling. That might be what I would say. I would go back to Afghanistan and I would just say, Joe, fire everybody. Just fire, whatever. You're going to find a new one. They're just going to come down the line of the Obama administration factory assembly line. Trust me, they have all ordered their hierarchy for the last 8 years. Another one will come down the pike. Just fire people. That'll be that. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to waste that. I would say, since you took the Biden side of it, I'll take the Kamala side. And I will say, I'm going to go back to right as she is coming out of the first reintroduction of herself, and she's contemplating her vice presidential pick. And I would tell her that she needs to build her house on one side of the road. That it's either if what has happened with Biden is ineffective, then you need to break with Biden. There's no way that this scenario happens where there's not bruised egos, there's not bruised feelings. Eventually, you are going to have to criticize, if not harshly criticize, the administration that you are a part of. This is a do or die scenario for you. If you don't make this work, or you don't make this really, really, really competitive, and you don't make America believe that you are somebody that they had not seen before, then your political career, at least nationally, is done. You might be able to run in California or something like that, but I don't think people are going to take you seriously nationally, and I don't think that they're taking her seriously nationally now. And so, break with Biden, figure out one or two big policies that you can project to the future. And for the love of God, you need to start reintroducing yourself to the American public. You should be calling into Morning Joe. You should be doing it friendly. You can do it friendly. It's fine. Everybody at MSNBC, especially during Brad Summer, they would just love to ask you, do interviews where the only question is integrity. Go. And you can talk about whatever you want, but you gotta show more of yourself. And I think it would have been closer, because I do think that the ground game stuff, if you look at, she did wind up getting, tens of thousands more votes than Biden in some of these swing states. But, I would say for her, whether or not you win, your future in national politics is on the line. And I don't think that she saved herself.
Yeah,
that's what I would do.
That's reasonable. I do wonder how much just the 2020 primary, like the positions that she had to take in that primary, I just wonder how many of those were just a bridge too far.
But here, look, I think one of the biggest winners of this was J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance came out, and the more people saw him, the more people liked him. He was as unpopular as anybody that had been selected as the vice president before, and you look at his approval ratings now, and they are markedly different. And the reason was that he just went out and talked to people, and part of it was saying, hey, I used to hate Trump. Hey, I used to hate God. I was an atheist. Now I'm a devout Catholic. America likes to see journeys. They like to see evolutions. They like to see you going from point A to point B. Kamala Harris, if she wants to appeal a little bit more to where I think that at least parts of the Democratic Party, if you pay attention to the conversations, are going into more of the heterodox world, then she would be a great avatar for that. She could say, yes, I said all this, and let me tell you exactly why I did that. I sat in a room and I talked to these people from these advocacy groups, and they made compelling cases. And the more I got involved in national politics, the more that I sat in the vice president's office, the more I saw these issues from a different perspective outside of California. Sell yourself, as I left California and I learned a lot. this is where my opinions have evolved. You have the opportunity to do that. And she didn't take it. And partly wonders, it's like, if I go back in time and I do that, am I just talking to a flawed candidate? Because ultimately, I think that's probably where she is.
I think, look, I don't think by any means you're not a perfect campaign, and I think Vance is a good counterpoint to the idea that voters are locked in stone on people. I do wonder if, I think I'm persuaded that she could have survived the 2019, that she could have survived some of that stuff. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Unfortunately, I don't like complimenting you about things, but that's a good one.
I just think it's like the way that the thing that happened instead was that she just quietly leaked out that she was backpedaling on all these policies. And it was incumbent on, I think, a really, really, really bad trend of behavior from the Democratic establishment, which is to never take an L ever. If it looks like we took an L, it's because the media lied about it and it's disinformation. We have always been on the right side of this issue, which is stupid. It's stupid. Like Kamala Harris said, I turned on fracking in the 2020 election. No, you didn't. You said Joe Biden's position was clear on fracking. You explicitly preserved your ability to turn back to not supporting fracking in that vice presidential debate. I watched it, all right? So just stop gaslighting. It's better to have an evolution, to have a journey.
It's also on fracking specifically.
I don't know. That's something where
I will say her language did annoy me. Of the like, I do not support banning fracking. It's like, okay. That's not an answer to the question of why did you change your mind.
Yeah. Yes. And there's a good, there's a story to tell there. There's a story to tell about America there. There's a story to tell about liberal voters there. And she absolutely left it. Okay, we're going to take a break for our update, and then we're going to come back with another game. This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Politics.com. It all brings you to the same place. That is our new home for all bonus content. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That is our Substack. It's also the best place that you can just sign up for the show. If you're just listening to this for the first time and you want to just subscribe to it, that's just the best place to go. Politics.com. You put in your email and you're able to subscribe for free. You're able to pay for the bonus stuff. It's easy peasy. And again, the $99 annual deal, permanent on politics.com. Let's get to some of the stories that we didn't have a chance to talk about. Donald Trump has appointed Susie Wiles, his Florida strategist and longtime ally, as his chief of staff for his second term. This marks the first time that a woman has held this role. Wiles is known for managing Trump's political operations since 2021 and has navigated the chaotic style of Big Chungus, handling campaigns, legal challenges, and coalitional expansion. Wiles has a very interesting resume. She worked with Jack Kemp, worked with Mitt Romney, worked with Rick Scott, and worked with Ron DeSantis. She had a big falling out with DeSantis, and that's probably why DeSantis is going to be nowhere near this administration. Unlike Trump's previous chiefs of staff, she does have close ties to the Trump family, signaling a tightly Trump loyalist-controlled White House, but she does not have any D.C. experience, which is going to be interesting. I think this was the right choice for Trump. Wiles and Chris LaCivita are the first time that Trump has not fired his campaign staff in the middle of a race. He fired two teams in 2016. He fired one team in 2020. This one went from pillar to post. And Wiles is somebody that is, by all accounts, a pretty brutal player. She came in when Trump was at his lowest. He didn't know how many people were stealing from him, didn't know what people were doing. Wiles organized everything. That earned her the spot at the top of the organization, and it has continued. We will see whether or not she's going to be eaten alive by the district, because that's the big knock against that pick, is that very often when you are in control of the president's calendar and you don't know all the games that happen in the swamp eats you alive. But we'll see. The Justice Department has charged Farhad Shakiri, an alleged Iranian operative, with plotting to assassinate President-elect Donald Trump at the direction of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Shakiri, still at large, was tasked with planning the assassination and surveillance of Jewish American citizens and Israeli tourists. Prosecutors also charged two accomplices, Carlisle Rivera and Jonathan Lonholt, for aiding in the murder-for-hire plot against Iranian-American activist Machine Alajad. The charges include murder for hire, conspiracy, and supporting a foreign terrorist organization, reflecting the United States' heightened security concerns regarding Iranian threats to American targets and dissidents abroad. This was a story that was kind of cooking in the background of the election period and popped up around the time that Donald Trump was nearly assassinated by an American-born shooter, which, by the way, we still don't know a lot about. I hope we learn more about that soon. But Iran wants Trump dead. If there is a sign that you know that Iran desperately did not appreciate the years 2016 to 2020, up to and including Qasem Soleimani taking a missile to the ear, well, then this is a sign of it. And finally, it looks like Donald Trump's legal woes are coming to an end. Special counsel Jack Smith has filed to vacate all deadlines in Trump's 2020 election interference case, aligning with DOJ policy against prosecuting a sitting president. Though the case is not fully dropped, Smith will update its status on December 2nd. Former Attorney General Bill Barr supports halting the federal cases in D.C. and Florida, citing potential distractions for the incoming administration. Trump still faces state-level convictions in Georgia and New York, although legal actions may be reconsidered under presidential immunity. The shift proves Trump's temporary relief from ongoing federal investigations is indeed real. I've said this before. The indictments against Donald Trump the summer before 2014 were the first time that I believed Donald Trump could win the nomination. Before that, I saw a politically weakened figure. And the day after the Mar-a-Lago raid, let alone the indictments, it was over. It was over. Because whatever anybody thought about January 6th, if you didn't understand clearly why a president should be prosecuted, let alone 4 times, unless you were just a resistance, he does crimes tweeter, it looked like lawfare. And if it looks like lawfare, then it looks like, oh, so Trump played dirty, but look, they're playing dirty too. For all the conversations about sane washing, this did more to level the playing field than anything else. And for what? Donald Trump won the popular vote, won the Electoral College, and now the cases are getting dropped anyway. Jack Smith now going to be 0 for 3 when it comes to prosecuting presidential candidates, adding to his record of failing to get a conviction against John Edward, who very clearly violated FEC law. Oh, Jackie baby, not your day. And that is your update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. 2 bonus episodes each and every week at $12 a month. And then you also get the $99 deal. It is 150 episodes for less than $100. 60 cents an episode. We're doing it, folks. We're doing it. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Let's get back to Scrimmy. All right, we're back. Let's play a game of what have we learned. Now, these can be big things. These can be little things. I've got a little smorgasbord here of things we have learned, and I'm going to start it off. And this is something that the Democrats aren't going to have a chance to run against Donald Trump unless he changes term limit laws. But here's the biggest thing that I want anybody who is liberal leaning to digest. Donald Trump is popular. He is a popular politician. And every single time the Democrats have run against Donald Trump, they have run against him like he was an unpopular person. In this race, that was the exact wrong thing to do. They didn't meet him on the issues that he was talking about. Every talking point about him was treating him like an inveterate liar that everybody would understand that he was an absolute liar. They were playing to their own base. They did not fundamentally understand that America looked at Donald Trump in a more favorable light. And there was plenty of evidence to say that that was the case, that his approval ratings were rising throughout this entire campaign. They ignored it, and I think it is at their peril.
So the counterpoint to that is that, one, Donald Trump had run for president twice, never broken 47%.
Yep.
And then this time, if the theory was that the polls were better, and they definitely were better than 2020, although that is some skinny skinned fat camp nonsense. If the polls were better, then his approval being up would make sense on some level. So I do understand why Democrats still talk themselves into this, like, oh, he has a ceiling or whatever. Didn't turn out to be true, but I do understand why they did it.
Yeah,
it also
it's things we learned. It's things we learned. We're learning.
Yeah, like I just think the case for him being more unpopular in 2020 made a lot of sense, right? Like he was pretty unpopular. He did an insurrection. His court overturned a woman's right to choose. Like the case for believing he was unpopular made coherent, logical sense. It wasn't, certain by any means, but yeah, Trump clearly was more popular, and people were much more focused on good economic memories of 2019 than Dobbs.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to like Project 2025. I hated the Project 2025 stuff from the jump. I thought it was a bad idea for a couple different reasons. The first was, why are you going to invent a brand that is scary when Donald Trump is the brand that is scary? Why are we inventing two brands? Especially when it's a brand that Donald Trump can say, I have nothing to do with. And now you're going to just continue to say, no, well, he's lying. He's lying. He's lying about that. It's like, okay, well, now you are betting that the majority of America believes that he's lying. It's a pretty big bet. Now, it's a safe bet when all you're doing is talking to people on the left side of the aisle, but it's a pretty big bet, and it looks like it came out negative. The other side of it is that it doesn't cost you anything if you believe you are on the right side of these issues to take the other, to frame your argument in a way where at least everybody can agree on central facts. If you hammer Donald Trump on trigger laws and like that kind of stuff, the pain that has come from trigger laws, then you don't have to say that he's going to run a national abortion ban. You can say that he caused this. We will do something about it. Now, incumbent upon that is you having an abortion message that is something other than trust us, we'll get to 60 votes in the Senate eventually, which I think is another problem. But that's what I've learned. Donald Trump was popular, and for the third time that the Democrats ran against him as a demagogue, it came up really, really short this time. What is the biggest thing that you learned?
The Democrats absolutely and completely have been thinking about youth and minority politics entirely wrong. They have been thinking about coalitional politics in a completely divorced from reality way, which is to say, well, we're going to give the gay community, we support gay marriage, so we're going to codify that, and that's how we get gay support, and we're pro women's right to choose, equal pay, and childcare, and that's how we win female voters. We win Latino voters by being, pro immigration, the Dream Act, DACA, stuff like that. We win black voters in the way that we win black voters. We win, and it's just very segmented. Like we offer a couple of solutions to every community, and we stitch it together that way. The problem is, one, they have no actual idea of how to talk to anybody under 30 at this point, and certainly young men. They have no idea how to talk to them. And Latinos do not seem to be listening and don't seem to be caring, and immigration status does not seem to be helping anymore with Hispanic voters. I mean, massive swings with working class Hispanics is, the story of the election in Arizona, Nevada, Texas, which, oh my God, is somebody who, is a believer in the project.
A believer in blue Texas. Boy, big step back. First time since what, 2008 that it's gone more red than the previous cycle?
Yep. And that was, that's a heartbreaker for me. But,
Travis County, my county, Austin, went more Trump than it did in 2020. And this is about as blue as it gets in the state of Texas.
Tarrant, which had, which has Fort Worth, that flipped back to Trump after, going Biden. The Colin Denton didn't flip. The county just north of Austin, I can't remember.
Yeah, the Round Rock area. Yeah.
That flipped back to Trump after going
Williamson.
That was just a complete. Texas was a disaster for Democrats. Even though Colin Allred outran Harris by like 6 months, it just didn't matter because Harris the party was decimated there. But there's no policy agenda for these voters that's coherent. But to the extent that there's a national policy agenda, they don't know how to sell it to these voters.
Yeah.
And like, I think some of the should Kamala Harris have gone on Rogan stuff doesn't matter because I don't think Kamala Harris would have done anything or said anything on Rogan that would have helped. And you can't just show up 2 weeks before the election, go on Joe Rogan and pretend everything's going to be fine. Democrats have to completely flip how they think about these issues, talk about these issues. Take Kamala Harris's housing policies, right? Very good. I think generally, honestly, should be pretty easy to get bipartisan support for. There's a lot of, cutting, regulations, cutting red tape in some of these regulations. Why are Democrats not going on Pardon My Take or Rogan or even Bill Simmons and saying, or, various Ringer shows and trying to pitch that to young men on the basis of, hey, you would like to not be stuck at home at 24 and be unable to bring a date home? Well, we got to reduce housing prices, and we're going to do that, which means it'll be easier for you to get your own place and probably be able to get laid too, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, how is that? How are we not trying to sell a unifying policy to different groups well?
Well, here, that leads to my next thing that I learned. Media. We've crossed the Rubicon when it comes to mainstream media and internet media, both in terms of the outsized element of where the media coverage was. There was a lot more coverage about stuff like Rogan than there was about 60 Minutes or some of the other traditional places that the presidential candidates go and speak to. And if you look at the results, it seems like the candidate that spoke to these demographics actually came out and voted for him. The young male vote, the young vote, the youth vote, the Gen Z vote was a part of Donald Trump's coalitional victory here. And he did the work. When you look at what he did, he went out there and spoke to people. But this is what I've learned, and it's what I've suspected, but now I know it. Authenticity matters so much more in an internet age and with internet medium than it does in the mainstream. The mainstream, you are trying to create a homogenous product that can be fed everywhere because everybody is drinking from the same trough and you don't want to offend people. In an internet world, you are talking to very specific slices of the electorate, even if they are very large. Like, Rogan has 30 million, but there's a lot of different people that speak there. You have to do a Rogan interview like a Rogan interview. You have to do a Theo Vaughn interview like a Theo Vaughn interview, and you have to talk about, cocaine and whatever. Trump and Vance were able to do that. their surrogates have long been better able to do that than Democratic surrogates on podcasts like that, on Pardon My Take, on some of these other places. The issue is, even when Kamala looked to influencers and, the Call Her Daddy podcast, great example, right? The next time that we do this cycle, the next time that we talk about Democrats going on podcasts like that, the Democrat that goes on Call Her Daddy better talk about old relationships. You better have stories about if Pete Buttigieg does Call Her Daddy, he better be telling some stories about old boyfriends, because that's the reason that podcast exists. That's how you bind yourself and show yourself to be authentic to those listeners, in the same way that, Trump was able to do it with a lot of these people. If you just go and use them like a bucket of viewers, you will not get the juice. And you saw that in the views. Kamala Harris did the Drink Champs podcast. That's a huge demo, especially for black men. And she did 30 minutes where it was pre-scripted questions. She didn't go and talk about, she didn't do QuickTime or Slime and have people take shots when she agreed or disagreed. Like, these are fun things that people bind to you on, and it's more important now than mainstream media. And we have finally hit that tipping point. I learned that.
It's really interesting because she was starting, like, she did that video with Tim Walz, right, where they lead talking about their musical interests, right?
Yeah.
And they talk about, she talks about her love of Stevie and Aretha and Coltrane and Miles Davis, and he tells that story about the Bob Seger 8-track, and it's like, okay, I like where this campaign's going.
Here we go.
I like humanizing the two of them, and then they just completely stopped.
Yeah, it just went away. They just never did another thing like that.
Because to take Call Her Daddy, right? I'm sure Kamala has some great stories, right?
Oh my God,
I'm sure she does. Like, I'm sorry, of course she does. She, was single until until
I mean, imagine if you were able. Imagine if Kamala Harris that was able to own at least a part of like the Willie Brown narrative. If she came out and said, "Hey, when I was a young, prosecutor, boy, did I have a bunch of old men that were coming after me, and sometimes, you get involved." Like, she could have owned that. That could have been part of her story, but instead it just becomes this sense of, if you don't address it, then it's going to be a sense of embarrassment, because the more coarse elements of your opposition are going to just circulate clips of Doug Emhoff saying that Kamala Harris does what she always does, puts her head down and gets to work.
Especially given like the authenticity thing. I mean, like you see it at a micro level, literally why I have an audience, right? Is that people like me, hate me, think I'm, a genius or a moron. They know they know I'm telling it like, how I see it, right? They know they're not getting bullshit.
And you'll eat your mistakes. That's the other thing. It's like, this is if I could offer a course on internet authenticity, the biggest thing is this: be bold in what you say, celebrate when you get it right, but when you lose, you have to stand in the middle of the arena and have garbage thrown at you, because it's very fun for people who like you. They will like you better if you stand there and smile while they throw garbage at you, because that's fun. It's interesting. It's exciting. It's stakes.
The people who privated their Twitter accounts, who had
losers.
I honestly, I thought back to, because 2020 and then 2021 didn't have good years either time. Like, I thought about it. I didn't even consider closing my Twitter account either time.
No,
just no interest in doing it. I literally just remember when I got Virginia really wrong. I just remember being like, I'm going to write the column, I'm going to post the column. You guys can all yell at me. I just muted the account. I just muted the tweets, but I just let them yell at me.
Yes. No, it's good. It's fun. It's healthy. Part of this is that people take it way too seriously. Part of this is that unless you have grown up on the internet, you don't realize that these flame wars kind of just come and go. And eventually, as long as you're intellectually honest with yourself and your audience, then they don't think that you're just gaslighting them. Then you're going to be fine. You're going to be built to last. And I think that is a lesson that I do think, if you look at the next generation, now that we've kind of burnt the Obama machine to the ground and we're going to see this Democratic Civil War, I think you look at people like Pete, who is probably too polished, but he'll go anywhere that it puts a microphone in front of his face. He'll talk. The only Democratic surrogate that went on Rogan while everybody was talking about Rogan, John Fetterman. I think John Fetterman is going to be either I don't know if he's going to be a more national candidate, but he is certainly going to ideologically lead a wing of that party. And I think that people would be dumb not to look at how he has talked and not say, well, that's an example of success. But we're going to have to see more authenticity. This idea of everything being managed and, if Joe Biden is wandering off, calling it cheap fakes, it's done. It's detrimental to the cause of getting elected.
Yep. Thing I learned number 2, 3, I don't know. Apparently the only thing Democrats need to do is just run Jews. Josh Stein kicked ass in Pennsylvania. Jackie Rosen, Alyssa Slotkin both win Senate races in Trump won states.
Yep.
Obviously Josh Shapiro
skin to their teeth
in 2022 in Pennsylvania. Apparently the secret is just run Jews. I'm like joking about this, but it's just like, I do think it's fascinating that Israel-Palestine just clearly made no difference to these results because, again, Kamala, lost in Michigan and she did badly in Dearborn. Again, a Jewish Zionist CIA officer won the state, right? Yeah. Jackie Rosen, is going to win. I think, between her and Gallo, those two are both going to get elected significantly harder races than
we're expected.
Lockett or Baldwin are getting elected in. Right? They had to overcome much bigger Trump margins to get elected. Now
Gallego had Carrie Lake. If there's, I think by and large, the candidate quality issue for the Republicans was not nearly as bad in 2024 as it was in 2022. The one thing that I think that if there is whatever new version of the RNC, if there's one decision that, Michael Whatley needs to make today, is you are flying to Phoenix and you are sitting everybody in that state party down and you are smashing people with baseball bats like Robert De Niro in Once Upon a Time in America. Like that party, like you have elected the worst possible representatives that should be a Republican Senate seat and they totally choked on it. Like Carrie Lake is a dog of a candidate and in this electorate, there's no reason why a Republican shouldn't have won.
Yeah, completely. And I agree that like the generic businessmen were not bad candidates, and frankly, I have to say, I oh god, this sentence is so hard for me to say out loud. Props to Mitch McConnell for prioritizing Dave McCormick to the extent that he did. He was always of the belief that Pennsylvania was his fourth best pickup opportunity, and that came true.
It did.
So good job, Mitch. Jesus, Murphy, that was hard for me to say.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Dreams do come true for old Mitch McConnell, Evan Scrimshaw, giving him props. Yeah, you really do have to tip your hat to Baldwin and Slotkin because this could have been a real nightmare scenario. It came very close for the Democrats of being an absolute nightmare scenario. Sam Brown, who you heard reports like toward the end, like before the early votes started coming in and people realized that Nevada was going to be close, the reports were that Sam Brown was like doubting whether or not he was electable because of his physical appearance and stuff like that, which to me belies probably deeper issues with him as a candidate and his campaign and whether or not he felt comfortable running. I think there's things for the Republicans to figure out, but the Democrats, at least on the Senate side, did overperform and stop what could have been a, I think if Baldwin and Slotkin go down, then the Democrats have no shot to really take the Senate back in the midterms. Now they have an outside shot to do it.
If Slotkin and Baldwin had gone down, Democrats would only have an outside shot of winning the Senate in 2028. You know, like hypothetically, if they were to win that election, you would want them to have a Senate majority too. And like now they have a chance of, if they win in 28, they could have a Senate majority. If they had lost, they would be out a Senate majority until 2030. It's very, very important that they got those two over the line.
All right.
Also, Bob Casey, you're not winning this. Just concede. I don't know what you're doing, and we can't talk about election denial and then have you putting out and have hiring Mark Elias and being like, oh, it's very Trumpy of Dave McCormick to be suing. It's like, guys, he's not suing because he's being Trumpy. You are the ones who are denying an election that is
end
called
of the election. Yeah. It's over. It's over, Bob. It's fine. Head into the light. Thing I learned. I'm done. Alan Lichtman needs to go away, and I would like to lock him in a cell with 13 keys that I throw away forever. I have always thought that he was horoscope pseudoscience. He was ridiculous. He's always changed and fudged his weird keys thing. I don't know why people take him seriously. He's an absolute blowhard. He was a Biden diehard truther until that flipped. And then he said that Kamala was going to win. And that obviously didn't come true. Can we be done with Alan Lichtman?
Yes. We should have been done with him many, many times ago, right? The thing about Lichtman is that he's a hack. He wrote a book which he claims is how he comes to the determination of his keys. But, like, his keys are intentionally vague and intentionally that way so that he can sort of guess the prevailing winds and do it, right? But what happened was in 2000, he predicted Al Gore. He was wrong. And then he said, I'm predicting the popular vote. I obviously can't predict the Electoral College, but I'm predicting the popular vote. So I'm right,
Yeah.
And then 2016 happens. He predicts Trump. He gets that one right, but not by the Al Gore standard.
Vote. Yeah.
Because I thought you were predicting the popular vote, buddy. And it's like, no. I'm predicting the winner. And then it's like, oh, okay. So you're just a hack then.
Yeah.
And then 2020, he's like, tries to, claim Biden's going to win. It's going to be a huge landslide, whatever. It wasn't, but, plenty of people got that wrong. Plenty of people looking at the polls got that wrong too. But, it's always been a pseudoscience. It's always been nonsensical. It's always been far too open for interpretation for what is supposed to be the thing. And then he went on CNN and said, the only chance Democrats have to win the election is keeping Joe Biden.
Yep.
Only chance.
The only chance.
Not they have a slightly better chance, not Biden gives them the best chance. The only chance. Then, within 36 hours of Kamala becoming the presumptive nominee, right? Instantly, Kamala Harris is the favorite now.
There we go. Just like that.
You should never be platformed again. If it takes you 36 hours to go from only chance to actually Kamala Harris is now the favorite, no. I'm sorry.
That and also, it's like, okay.
You can change your mind. You can change your mind when faced with new evidence, but no. And then his feud with Nate Silver being like, you don't know how to turn the keys, only I can turn the keys. How about we take those keys and shove them up your, derriere?
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's the other thing. One of the keys is America at war? And he said no. And it's like, well, look, yes, American citizens are not, well, some American citizens are in war zones, but we are not actively deploying American citizens to ground war. But if you were to interview the majority of America and ask them that question, I presume that a statistically relevant sample would say, yes, America is at war, because we're talking about war constantly. We're talking about the war in Ukraine. We're talking about Gaza. We're talking about these places. And then the other one was, who's more charismatic? And I don't care where you stand on Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. Donald Trump is a more charismatic person than Kamala Harris. You can hate him, but he is a television star. He was on television, a popular television star for decades. He was a media person for decades. Like, it's not comparable. Donald Trump is a more charismatic person than both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And both times he's like, no. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are more charismatic. It's like, get out of here, man. Go away. Alan Lichtman, knock it off.
Also, major foreign policy success and major foreign policy failure. Please define your terms here, buddy. Because if I wanted to, I could declare Afghanistan both a major policy success and a major policy failure.
Yeah.
Or I can call it both at the same time.
Yeah.
Like,
all right.
What are we doing here?
I don't know. I don't know why people have him on. Because he pitches himself as the guy who got everything right. He didn't. And in our world, where I do think that it is admirable that we continue to try to find statistical ways to measure popularity, momentum, ground game, whatever it is, right? Like this is a weird field where you're trying to grab a bunch of different data points and cobble them together and figure out where the election is. That's what my job is, right? I'm trying to figure stuff out. But he is ridiculous. He is a ridiculous person. And I don't know why he had any kind of resurgence. To the shadow realm with you, Lichtman.
Agreed.
All right. Final thing you learned here.
Joe Biden needs to never be seen or heard from again. I fundamentally blame him for this. He screwed the party. His selfishness. Like, it really was about him. It really was his fault, and he needs to be shunned from all polite company. And I was somebody who, after the midterms, looked at the legislative agenda and said, honestly, can make the case that he, has been a better president in 2 years than Obama was in 8. I never want to see this man speak again. I never want to see his face again. Get out. Go to Delaware and stay there.
Eat it in Rehoboth. Do you believe that this is the end of the Obama machine, right? Like we're the wheels are off. It will now split into warlords, but the idea of this same group of people kind of going from administration to administration, that's over, right?
Yes, although I think Josh Shapiro is the favorite, and given that he seems to have totally modulated his voice to just do an Obama impersonation, we're still going to be hearing an Obama-esque figure, but no, I don't think the David Plouffe, general orbit is just going to happen again. It's going to be generational renewal, and it's going to be a lot of people whoever the nominee is, I think it's going to be a different group of people because, man, they sent Plouffe out on TV pretty constantly in the final 2 weeks. Jeremy Melly Dillon the same, to be like, hey, everything's fine, guys. We're hitting our numbers. We're very happy with the situation we're in.
Yeah.
And then it turned out actually they weren't prepared in the slightest.
It was Baghdad Bob. The amount of time that was spent talking about Tony Hinchcliffe instead of what turned out to be prophetic, anemic early vote turnouts that should have, I mean, because it would benefit you to say, look, Democrats need a big election day. We need to turn out bigger than we've ever done before. Instead, it was like, it's all happening. It's all happening. Look at those gender gap numbers. Trust me, guys, our door knocking is out of this world. And we know, like, all of our metrics are hitting. We are cautiously optimistic, nauseously optimistic. I don't know why the Trump campaign is being so braggadocious. And it's like, well, it looks like one campaign actually had an idea of what this electorate was, and the other one was lying to either themselves or the American public or both.
What happens to does Pod Save America have any reason to continue to exist?
I think they do. I mean, people like those personalities. Democratic partisans certainly enjoy them. It's not, whenever you look at partisan media, it's not whether or not you're right. It's whether or not your audience enjoys your content. I do think there's enough liberal and Democratic partisans that like those guys that this will continue. The idea that they will be as close to power, I think, is fading. And that whether or not that changes their popularity, that the veneer that they are on the inside and they know things, if that is reduced, then maybe their popularity is reduced. But I think that they're fine. I do wonder where the general theme of like the hopium factories are, but I think that they always wind up spinning back up in 4 years. People want to hear things that confirm their priors, even if 4 years ago they were really shattered. I do think that people's priors being really shattered and desperately wanting to understand what's actually happening benefit shows like this one, where we actually try to look at that as opposed to giving a partisan flavored version of events. But I think they're fine. I mean, what? They're sitting on Soros money too, so they're good.
Yeah, but like, okay, one, John Levitt, them being like, this is the most important election in America's history, and one of the co-hosts of the flagship show going on Survivor is a choice, certainly. Not what I would make, but
yeah.
Whatever. That's one. But two, do you let's frame it this way. Do you think in the run up to 2028 every prospective Democratic candidate is going to swing by to talk to them?
They should.
Because they got like 19 of the pres nominees in 2020, or the primary candidates in
everybody but Biden,
like,
right?
They got a ton
of Biden
them.
hates them.
You think like Shapiro is going to swing by and be like, "Hey, need to suck up to the Pod Save America audience"?
I think that everybody should. Everybody should go on that show because it does have an audience. I think that this is again a problem. Either you're going to speak to an audience that you believe you can win of motivated voters, or you're not. You should not only be going on shows where you believe that you're going to have a friendly conversation. You should be going on shows where you believe that you're going to have an adversarial conversation, because that's good radio, right? That's good television. You want to be there. You want conflict. I would say that. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on what people want out of the show. And full disclosure, I do not listen to Pod Save America. I feel like I get enough of the Democratic worldview in my daily life. I don't need to have specialized content.
I gave up years ago.
But I do know a bunch of people that listen to this show that also listen to that one, and I often hear takes compared, or people will argue the Pod Save America perspective to me via email. So I do know that there is an audience for it. I don't know. I think that they've built up enough of an institution that people will listen to them, but they're certainly not oracles. And, in general, I just don't like the cataclysmic level that things got. I do think that for some people, if you were unprepared for Donald Trump to win the popular vote and you actively believe that jackbooted thugs are taking over America as we speak, then you have disassociated from a reality that I think I have a pretty good beat on because I'm covering this. And yes, there are policy decisions that are going to be different, some radically different, but it was the will of the people. And you can't really argue about it because the popular vote tells the tale, not only the Electoral College. And so it's I do think it's harmful to cling people so hard to echo chambers, but that's part of our awkward internet adolescence where we're just going to cherry pick the information that we have. And part of the way that you get better, part of the hard lessons that people have to learn is hitting themselves on the pavement like some people did in this race. And Republicans had to do in 2020. They had to realize that not everything was the hopium factory that they had expected it to be.
And I certainly think, a lot of, I think people are conflating like, yeah, it sucked. And it sucked to see the scale, but like, I wasn't that surprised by it. I don't.
You shouldn't have been.
No. Like I thought it wasn't quite a coin flip, but like, I'm not arrogant enough to to be shocked at the idea that Donald Trump is going to do better than my expectations. Like, fool me twice.
Yeah. Well, look, I think to me, the argument, and I told everybody leading into Election Day, is that I thought that this was probably not going to be as close as 2016 and 2020 were, mostly because if we are to take the polling seriously and if we are to believe that the polling is better than it was in 2020, then really the only question that you have is, as you made the argument, would Kamala Harris be underestimated by the polling because it had overcorrected, which I think was a reasonable argument to make going into Election Day, or is Donald Trump's low propensity voter surge just impossible to get exactly right? And even if you're better, are you going to underestimate it? And that's wound up that wound up being what happened. But everything else, the trend of ticket splitting seems like it came to pass if we're looking at these Senate races. Donald Trump overperformed the polls by like a point or two in some of these aggregates. That's pretty good. That's within the margin of error. In fact, the national polls showed him trending toward winning the popular vote, which wound up happening. Some of them are probably going to get it dead right. The polling was good. It was just, did you believe that Kamala Harris was being underestimated, or is Donald Trump going to marginally beat his polls by whatever margin? It turns out it was the latter, not the former. If you had that perspective going into Election Day, you shouldn't have been shocked by it. But That's not the story that was being told on a lot of different media outlets.
I just think there's a big difference between being like, yeah, you can know something is plausible to happen and still hurt, right? Like,
yeah,
I for some reason I've gotten deeply emotionally invested in the Edmonton Oilers in the last couple of years. They came back from 3-0 down, got to a Game 7, and lost.
Mm-hmm.
That still hurt.
In the home of hockey, Sunrise, Florida.
Didn't make it hurt less. Seeing Matthew Tkachuk's smug face did not, that was still painful, even though I was fully, fully knew it was possible. Like, sometimes it just sucks. That's it. Who's going to be the Democrat who decides he's going to camp out on Fox News for the next 3 years in preparation to run for president?
Why didn't you just say Pete Buttigieg at the end of that sentence?
Sorry, what? I couldn't hear you. Yeah, but is Shapiro going to do it? If I were him, I would.
I mean, yeah, I think that a bunch of people are going to do it. I think that Fetterman will do it. I think that Shapiro will do it. I think that Buttigieg will do it. If I were Gretchen Whitmer, I would think about pushing more in that direction. Anybody that is trying to push a Midwest aesthetic, I'll tell you what, especially considering his race coming up, if I were John Ossoff, I would not look at Fox News as the devil. I hope that as the relevance of some of these media outlets are declining, not only will some of these candidates, in fact, here, I'll put it this way. Tired, these candidates should go on Fox News. Wired, these candidates should go on Ruthless. These candidates should go on One American News. These candidates should go into the real hostile territory and make their case there to those voters, because Fox News is something that is going to continue to decline in ratings between now and 4 years from now. All these candidates need to be going into the teeth of what they believe are persuadable voters from the conservative movement. And if they don't, if they hide, if they believe that it's unfair, too bad. Like, we're not in a world where you can just hide in major media outlets that are going to give you favorable position. You got to go and talk to people. And if you're going to get points for trying, you're going to get points for going in there and answering hostile questions. And guess what? It's good for you. It's good for you to be able to get the toughest questions that you possibly can and at least have an answer. Foul off these fastballs for long enough, and you're going to get credit for doing it.
And also, like, we literally have proof of concept. Pete Buttigieg turned a, mid-ranking cabinet job into being possibly viewed as the best communicator in Democratic politics right now. And if the rumors are right, potentially the next governor of Michigan.
Well, that was my favorite quote right before the election, where it's like Pete's like, oh, I'm Michigan, governor of Michigan's possibility depends on what happens. And it's like, yeah, if Kamala loses, then he might run for president. Like, I don't know. It'll depend. I mean, like, right now, there are going to be conversations that'll happen where, the Ari Emanuels of the world and the Reid Hoffmans of the world and the Alex Soroses of the world are all going to start shopping to find their Pokemons that will, plug into this Democratic Civil War. And the question is exactly, where did those guys see the Democratic universe? Do they see this as, hey, we didn't swing left enough, we need to have a bold progressive ideologue that's going to sell things that America wants to the public? Do they see it as, no, that not only do we need Shapiro on the ticket, the Shapiro needed to be the presidential move. Pennsylvania is still going to be the #1 state in 2028. We just need to tack hard to the center and actually this time mean it. I don't know. That's going to be up to the donors. They're all going to pump money into various different elements of this fractional Democratic Civil War, but it's happening. The Democratic Civil War is on. When Bernie Sanders is saying the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class, and AOC is coming out and people are off the record slamming AOC, like, the knives are out, and they're going to be stabbing for the next 4 years.
Can I just say that I don't understand the Democrats won't nominate a woman thing? Democrats got 3 women elected to the Senate in states that voted for Trump. Gretchen, Michigan has been perfectly happy voting for 1, 2, 3, I think 4 women now hold statewide office in Michigan. Either the 3 elected officers elected in the Senate. Like, I think a lot of people being like, "Oh, Democrats are just going to run the whitest man of all time." Like, yeah, I think Shapiro is I think my favorite in the clubhouse right now for the next nominee. But like, I do think people are massively overstating the like, oh, they could never run a woman. Like, Whitmer has an electoral track record nobody can blink at, right? Yeah, nobody can scoff at. She seems authentic, and I think would do well in sort of hostile territory, especially since one of the keys to surviving a hostile interview is that if they go too far, you just look great for sitting there and taking it. Yeah. So if they go too far, it's a viral moment for you. You get to look like a hero and say, hey, I just wanted to talk about my plan to advance X, Y, and Z. and he decided to come at me for being a woman or whatever. Yeah. It's Buttigieg. It's some homophobic nonsense or whatever.
Yeah.
You look great in that situation. But I mean, she would do great doing those things. She could do that stuff fine. And I actually believe her, when she shows up at a Michigan game, or when she, does, a video being like, F Ohio State or whatever, right? Like,
I mean, look, I wrote this on Substack.
She she is these things. And in an era of politics that is increasingly about authenticity, I think a lot of the they're never nominating a woman. You can make the case that Gretchen Whitmer might be the best choice.
I think, I had a friend of mine come over after the election, and he was like, well, I guess this is just what it is. They're just never going to America's never going to elect a woman. And I'm like, well, either of the two women that ran won an actual competitive primary. Hillary Clinton was set up with a tomato can in Bernie Sanders. And what did she do? She made Bernie Sanders the most famous progressive in the last 50 years. That was supposed to be a speed bump for her. She couldn't handle it. If she was in an actual a big field election, she probably would not have survived it in 2016. But the field was cleared for her, and she choked to the point where she fractured her own base. And, obviously there was no primary in 2024. Kamala Harris, the only time that she was in a primary, she was terrible at it. So it's like, primaries are healthy. That's another thing I learned. Primaries are healthy, Democrats. Big primaries.
For a while. This is
just let them beat the living crap out of each other. Like it does. It's like, oh, but you're creating attack lines for the general. Don't worry. Either you're going to be able to survive them or you're not. And you're going to realize that really, really quickly. This is, and if you ask me, do I think Gretchen Whitmer could beat Josh Shapiro in a Democratic primary in 2028? Yeah, feasible. I could see it. I think that those two will be favorites. Do I think Pete Buttigieg as a gay man could win a primary? Yeah, I think he probably could. I don't think that any of these are hard and fast. That you just need to do it. You need to be out there. This all can't be on a spreadsheet. This all can't be by the numbers. The people need to believe in you, or else you're gonna find this fool's gold nonsense.
Yep, and I also think the big thing is just like politics is very much about personalities and moments, right? It's being in the right place at the right time, right? If Obama had, if Obama had come around 4 years earlier or 4 years later, he's maybe just a, middling senator, right? He might never have gotten his opportunity.
If he didn't have the star maker, Hillary Clinton, who is the greatest star maker in American politics. She made 3 big, brilliant, bright stars. Now two-term presidents in Donald Trump and Barack Obama, and then Bernie Sanders going from an absolute laughingstock in the Senate to somebody that people will, paint murals of when he dies.
Yeah, or even take a look at Jeb Bush, right? I'm a big Chuck Klosterman guy, and I have a book of his old. It's a compendium of a bunch of his old columns, and in one of them, there's a footnote, and this was from like 06 or 07. There's a compendium of his old things. There's a footnote about how, in all likelihood, the 2008 election is going to be Hillary Clinton versus Jeb Bush.
Yep.
Look at what happened, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, everyone, politics is about opportunities. So yeah, our female nominees 0-2? Sure. You can also make the case that, if Hillary was better at politics, she probably would have won 08, but she might just not be good at politics. And I feel fairly confident in blaming Joe Biden. Not Donald Trump. I feel very confident in blaming Joe Biden, not Kamala, for Kamala losing. So, I don't even want to put the L on her or female candidates or any of this. No. No. And I'll say this: everybody that is out here talking about identity politics today
liberal listeners, Democratic listeners, this is a great opportunity. If today they're talking about identity politics, never listen to them again. That's disqualifying. Like, this election was lost on the economy. That's what happened. The Democratic Party did not listen to people that were complaining about the economy. The Biden administration gaslit them, and the Harris campaign could not come up with a compelling message to speak to them. That's the story. If this is about, well, they didn't listen to a woman, or, well, actually, it turns out that black and Hispanic voters are misogynist, stop it. If they're saying that, don't listen to them. They're poisoning your brain. They are screwing up the averages. They are flooding the zone with nonsense. Like, this is a very clear, the lessons from this election, because of the margins, are very, very black and white. There's not a lot of shades of gray here, in my opinion.
It's also especially stupid to claim that the Hispanic swing is about sexism, given that Hillary Clinton is, other than Obama, is like literally the best performing Democrat with Hispanics for like 30 years.
It's just
like, so did they only become sexist in the last 8 years, or?
It's just get out of academia, man. If they have a PhD next to their name, turn down the volume a little bit. Listen to somebody other than that. I don't know. Here's what we're going to be listening to is Evan Scrimshaw, who is now untethered, not weighed down by, he's unburdened by what has been when it comes to his previous media employments, which means we are going to support him in his independent ventures, which is where, Mr. Scrimshaw?
ScrimshawScripted.substack.com. That is where my general political writing is going. My YouTube channel, Evan Scrimshaw on YouTube. I had Ryan Jakubowski on before the election for a final preview. I'm going to be having him on hopefully next week to go over pick through more of the entrails from this election.
Yep.
I do a weekly NFL pick show over there. If anybody wants to hire me to write about football or hockey or anything, they can email me through my Substack or DM me on Twitter at @eScrimshaw. I'm just going to be kind of vibing. I'm just laughing at the fact that your Steelers are, like somehow at or near the top of your division.
Who do you got in the big Commanders, Commies versus Steelers match this weekend?
Assuming Lattimore is like playing this week for Washington, I think I lean Commanders because getting a quarter is going to solve a lot of their problems. But that's going to be whether or not you can get your first hits, whether you can get Jaden Daniels down with one hit is going to be a thing, because he's slippery and if you can't get him down, then he's going to make problems.
The benefit to the Steelers is that we're playing Jaden Daniels and Lamar back to back, and we have been very good against Lamar in terms of containing him. This version of the Steelers defense has actually been better than years past with running quarterbacks because the edge rushing is so elite, and they just added to it in the trade market. I'm excited mostly because I am of the strain of Steelers fans that believes that we've been hiding our real playbook through the first half of the season. And because we knew that the second half was going to really tell the tale with all of our division games and a really tough non-division schedule, including this one, which looked to be the easy game when the schedule first came out, and now is really hard. But I believe that this is the reason why the Steelers hired Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator, because the Steelers in these kinds of games where they don't want to run up the score want to be able, with Cordero Patterson and Najee Harris, grind this game. They want to do these like quarter killing drives. And I believe that they are in a good position to do it, but we'll see. The rubber's going to meet the road on this team.
Yeah, I have been like a Steelers are like vaguely fraudulent for the last few years believer, and
Yeah.
this year I'm buying in.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, man. This has also just been like what an amazing year for washed quarterbacks. Like all the quarterbacks that at some point just had funerals, held for them. Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Russell Wilson. It's like now Night of the Living Dead. All these zombie quarterbacks are back and they're like awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible. I have Flacco too, like somehow.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I don't know what the hell Indianapolis is doing, but good for them, I guess. Not my problem.
Exactly. All right. Everybody go support Scrim. Thank you very much, buddy.
Thanks, man.
And that'll wrap it up for us today and for this week. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, from Austin, Texas. For Dog and Pony Show audio, you want to email me, it is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Follow us on all the social medias. It's Justin R. Young on TikTok, Justin R. Young on Instagram, Justin R. Young on X, and you can follow us, Politics. We post everything on YouTube there as well. You want to hit me up with a one-time donation, you can. PayPal.me/payjury, Justin-Young-20, PX3 Cash, and you can send me anything you'd like physically in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Of course, the only place you get our bonus content is our Substack. That is where you head on over. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. For $3 a week, you get 2 bonus episodes. Boom. Just that simple. $1.50 a week. You get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. In high times and low, you get 2 bonus episodes. Stay informed. This is the most scattered that we are going to be in this political landscape. And if you want to actually know the things that happened when everybody else was paying attention to other shinier stuff, if you want to know about where things are going, now's the time to get on the team. And just to remind you, our $99 deal for a year's worth of content, that's 60 cents an episode. Well, that's available there too. And that brings you right on through this cycle, the first 100 days. This is going to be the busiest legislative agenda that Donald Trump is going to have. And then we head into midterm. All right, we're not going to get too forward. But please, that's permanent now. We are making the subscription cuts permanent. Juice in the economy. Keep putting more money in your pocket. $99 for an entire year worth of content available at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. But if you want your name read on this show for 1 calendar year, the only place to go is our Titanic founding tier, like these fine folks. Pro Idiot, Meemaw to the Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Jeremy. Oh yeah, it's Adam, Chiller Tomatoes, Just Another Pilot, David, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Will, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Matt, Matthew, The Borge B, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Phil, Andrew, Devon, Edison, Paul, Jerry, Gloria, A Dog Named Checkers, Berkeley Steven, John, and Zombie Doc. You want your name read on the show? Only one place to do it. The founding Titanic tier on Substack. Done with election week. But oh my God, we got stuff coming up. Literally in the process of me recording this, everybody's talking at me, and I can't hear a word they're saying. Oh my God, people are spilling the beans. Nancy Pelosi comes out and says there was supposed to be a blitz primary. Mark Halperin saying that was his reporting as well. We're going to have so much to dig through. And it's all coming up. Thank you for being with us on this, the finale of the 4-year cycle that is our political system. Till next time, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, saying But some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. And still more discuss politics by this. This is the only show that dares discuss. Oh! 3. See you next week.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.